When the Callisto protocol was first unveiled, its trailer immediately turned heads. The game looked gorgeous, dripping with atmosphere, violence, tension, and was unmistakably inspired by Dead Space. But not merely inspired. It was announced the game was directed by the very creator of Dead Space, and several other veterans of the series were on the team as well. Its marketing heavily leaned into the idea that this was the successor to Dead Space. It was June of 2022. When the game released 6 months later, it did indeed deliver a beautiful, disgusting, violent, next-gen horror successor to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. It was a Punch-Out in Dead Space. Wait, what? Let's back up the train. The Callisto protocol puts you in the shoes of Jacob, a pilot who crash lands on a prison planet while delivering some questionable cargo. He's rescued by the captain of the guard, but unexpectedly thrown into the prison without reason. They brand him with an implant, and almost immediately he awakens to find the prison in tatters and overrun by freakish monsters. But enough setup, let's get into the action. You quickly find a prisoner who knows a way out but needs some help to get out of his cell, and it's there we're introduced to the combat system and to the biophage creatures. You might be surprised to learn this cutscene here isn't just a cutscene, it's the actual core gameplay. You dodge left and right, and you whack. Now, a melee-focused horror game isn't necessarily a bad thing. Bringing you closer to the action should ramp up the horror and danger. But, I wasn't joking when I said this feels like Punch-Out. Dodging and weaving around the enemy's punches, and then delivering a heavy hit of your own and knocking them out. Enemies have a lot of health too, so trading blows with them really does feel like you're going the distance in a boxing match. Heck, the enemy even uses clinches. And the way the camera hyper-focuses on the single enemy you're engaging with really makes it feel like you're supposed to be sparring or something. It actually really reminds me of, well, Z-targeting in Ocarina of Time. How did I manage to squeeze 2 different Nintendo references into a horror video? Okay, here's another bizarre game reference. Did I mention this game was initially created to expand the PUBG universe? You know, that Battle Royale game? But the connection was dropped mid-development except for a couple Easter eggs. So, yeah, we're in some unusual territory here. The dodging, by the way, isn't like a parry that you need to time. You just hold the stick in a direction and he'll dodge anything. Hold back and he'll guard. If it's a 1-2 punch, you'll need to dodge in one direction and then the other. Dodge left both times and you'll get nailed in the face with the follow-up. You take a little bit of damage when blocking, so it's not that useful. The dodge is a lot better. You also have a stomp, but it only works on corpses or enemies without legs. For some reason, Jacob will just miss every single time when trying to stomp on an enemy you've knocked down. I guess he knows stomping is illegal in boxing. You have to give the opponent 10 seconds to stand up. Don't worry though, you can still cheat by hitting your opponent into one of the many meat grinders and spike walls populating the prison. Interesting place. The whole game isn't melee though. When you're not boxing, you're probably using your special gauntlet that gives you telekinetic powers, called a grip. Also super fun, but not really a traditional survival horror ability. Telekinesis is usually more of a toy box kind of power, something fun to play around with for kicks. Yeah, I know Dead Space had it too, but you couldn't use it on enemies there. Here, I feel less like an ordinary guy in a nightmare and more like Darth Vader. I have a suit of armor, a lightning sword that cuts limbs off, I can paralyze enemies by pointing my hand at them, and I've even got the force push. The grip is potentially very powerful. Early on, throwing an object at an enemy might kill them in one shot, and if you happen to be next to one of the very many spiked walls or spinning saws, they'll kill anything you throw at it, always immediately. Unfortunately, the grip can be kind of wonky. It likes to grab whatever it feels like, and since the game isn't optimized as a shooter, pointing it in the right direction isn't the best and the aim is a little iffy. Sometimes you'll throw an enemy into the meat grinder, only to have them fall short or bounce off the rim harmlessly, usually when you need them dead the most. And you'll probably get whacked by someone else for your trouble because you can't use the dodge while you're aiming. Other enemies are usually polite enough to let you spar in peace when you're doing melee, but when aiming, they go right for you. And your field of view is so narrow that the experience can feel not great. That goes for gunplay as well, but I'm not done complaining about the grip yet. The thing takes forever to charge. 3 minutes without an upgrade, and it isn't progressive. It's all or nothing. The grip is a paperweight until the full charge is completed. Geez, it's not a super attack, it's a core component of the gameplay. Go fix a snack, I guess, while you're waiting for it. The timing of the recharge is obfuscated too. You can see from the UI that it's charging, but not how long it will be or how close to done it is. Why? Certainly, cooldowns will keep you from abusing it in the same encounter, but such a long recharge time is baffling and it hurts the flow of gameplay. I feel like I'm in an awkward social situation waiting for the thing. Is this a bad time? Are you gonna be done soon? Should I, just leave then, or... It's also just odd. It starts to charge after 3 minutes, and then the actual charge takes a few seconds. Why is this so convoluted? There's also a battery item that recharges the grip automatically, or it's supposed to apply automatically when your grip is empty. It sort of does, but whatever you're currently lifting when it clicks empty is still going to fail, and then you have to use the grip again after that for the battery to pop in. Which is not helpful because you're now in grave danger, and you've probably already had to pivot your strategy in that instant, if you haven't long forgotten that you even have a battery in your inventory in the first place. Plus, it's just rough on the muscle memory in general. It's really counterintuitive. The other issue with the grip is seeing the damn bar. And this is a great segue to complaining about the UI. This game takes the diegetic UI from Dead Space by putting your condition on the back of your neck. The thing is, Dead Space very clearly communicated the information to you. Unlike that game, though, here the bars are frequently obscured either by movement or the camera. The health bar isn't that bad, but it's not great either. I've definitely died because I didn't even realize that I was low on health. But that's nothing compared to the grip display, because it's so damn tiny. Can you even see it? You probably thought that was a dirt speck on your screen. What's worse, the actual meter doesn't even pop up until you aim. You can only see whether it's empty or whether it's charging when you're not aiming. Why? Just tell me how much juice I have left already. I need to know how much before I decide to use it, not after I put myself in danger by aiming it. And even when you can see it, it's still not amazing because the bar doesn't readily translate into how many times you can lift something. Different objects and enemies drain different levels of juice, and it continually drains while holding them. So, okay, I have this much charge left. What does that mean to me? The other significant part of the combat is gunplay. For the first half of the game, your only gun is abysmally bad. And you only have a very tiny inventory, so you're not going to be carrying more than 8 to 12 bullets at any one time. Frankly though, even if I could carry infinite bullets, I'd still probably not bother using it. You can load a whole clip into one enemy and still get nowhere. Plus, you can't dodge while aiming, so you're more likely to take a hit trying to shoot them with a lousy gun than you would have just fighting a melee. You could also use guns for a quick shot while melee fighting. After whacking an enemy a few times, a crosshair appears where you can aim and shoot for an auto-targeted blast to a weak area. And that's about it for gunplay. You do get a much better gun later on though, which improves the usefulness of it a lot. Plus, ammo starts to pop up a lot more, and you can carry more of it in the latter half of the game. As an aside, there's actually 5 different guns. You get 2 for free, and you can develop those 2 weapons into 3 variations. But it's prohibitively expensive, and that also dilutes the ammo pool. You find ammo for every weapon that you've obtained, meaning less ammo for your favorite one, should you decide to develop all of them. And frankly, there's not any reason to use more than one gun in the first place. Unless you really feel like mixing things up, you're better off just sticking to the default weapons. And that's the basics of the gameplay. The next step really is how it all combines in a big fight. For one thing, enemies have way too much health. You're too slow, and the camera makes it hard to fight multiple enemies effectively. Sure, you take damage if you misread an enemy's attack, but the biggest danger is frankly knocking your sparring partner far enough away that the Z-targeting switches to his neighbor unexpectedly. You have the other tools to manage crowds, but it's just not as seamless as some other horror games, because the movement, aiming, and camera really want to work against you. Like I mentioned earlier, enemies will usually wait patiently, but if you use your other tools, it's open season, and you can't dodge while you're using them. Meaning, using your full toolset is actually the most dangerous option. The most annoying is these acid-spitting enemies. If you're fighting someone else, they'll just be sniping at you the entire time, and you can't dodge the acid. Sure, there's some tactics to it. Try to shoot their head off and they won't spit acid anymore. Grab them and yank them off a ledge. Yank them close to you and then force them into a melee. Yank another enemy as your human shield. They all work. I still hate the damn things. Something fun is that there's a mild dismemberment system. If you blow off their legs, they'll crawl on the ground. An essential part of the boxing system is reading the enemy's attack. 1 punch? 2 punches? But if you sever their arm, well, no more 1-2 punches for them. There's even an upgrade that breaks their arm whenever they try to block you. It's always satisfying. Midway through, enemies will start to mutate in the middle of combat. You've seen this before, probably most notably in Resident Evil. An enemy will spawn tentacles, and if you shoot the tentacles, they die pretty quickly. Otherwise, they'll revive as a new, stronger enemy with full health, meaning the already too long it took you to kill it is now amplified. Sigh. Still, one-on-one, no big deal. In a group, ugh. You're far more vulnerable when you're aiming, so if you back off for a second to aim and shoot the tentacles, you're likely to get mauled by its neighbors. If you hit it, great, but I find the hit detection on the tentacles to be pretty annoying, and the number of bullets it takes is sort of vague. At least with the hand cannon, all this is a lot easier with the riot gun. But the window to shoot them is also really short before it doesn't matter anymore. If you don't bother targeting the tentacles, you can just sigh and get ready for a hell of a lot more whacking. They take an eternity to kill. These guys have simple patterns, but before you get the armor, they really do hit hard, so you still have to keep your guard up. One stray hit could bring you from low green health all the way to dead. Also, shooting these things requires outright fighting the game's own systems. Remember that quick shot you can do after a melee combo? It doesn't aim for the tentacles, it aims for the head. And even better, it overrides your regular aiming while that crosshair is on the screen. Meaning the game's own systems actually make it harder to hit the damn tentacles. And when do you think the tentacles usually pop out? About the same time the quickshot prompt appears. Thanks for absolutely nothing. The good news is, if you can call it that, they all mutate into the exact same creature, so you'll memorize its attacks pretty quickly. The other good news is, like I said earlier, the riot gun makes it a lot easier to hit the tentacles. Also, the power attack and damage upgrades for your stun baton make it way easier to kill them before the mutation finishes, and it helps you take them down a lot quicker when they do mutate too. The armor upgrade also makes them a lot less dangerous as well, so they are really annoying, but only for a short while. After a while, they're all just more cannon fodder. Speaking of, upgrades really help out a lot. Credits are stingy and upgrades are pricey, but you do find items that are only good for selling, and you do also get credits by stomping on enemy corpses. And upgrades can be pretty powerful too, so it can be a little stressful trying to decide what to upgrade. There's a fight in Habitat I died on repeatedly, but had I upgraded the grip enough, I could have just thrown the entire mob into the shredder and moved on in 2 seconds. However, a lot of my complaints definitely faded after upgrading the equipment enough. The heavy attack is a real game changer. They give you some much needed variety, you can hit surrounding enemies with it to really speed things up, and once you have that, enemies are just going down much faster and much easier. The grip becomes a lot more user-friendly too once you have a few upgrades. The riot gun is also just infinitely better than the hand cannon, and now your quick shots will really do some damage. Your armor even comes with an inventory upgrade to boost. Once you're properly decked out, the latter half of the game starts to feel like you're bullying these poor biophages. Speaking of, late in the game, you encounter these blind enemies. Look at these pathetic little things. I can stealth kill 4 of them in a row in seconds. It's a far cry from taking 30 swings to kill one enemy at the beginning, isn't it? I have to say, blind enemies are cool and all, but we live in an era of lickers from Resident Evil 2 Remake, the Garrador from 4-Make, the clickers from The Last of Us even. They're all way more impressive than these sad little blind enemies. Step it up, Callisto. Alright, let's step it up. Check out this mini-boss, the Two-Head. You've got to be kidding me with these guys. Their gimmick is that Jacob lands outside of melee range when you dodge them, so you have no choice but to shoot them. Shoot, dodge, shoot, dodge, shoot, dodge. That's it, for 2 minutes straight. And they appear 4 times in the span of 2 chapters. Come on, man. Oh ho, but here's a real boss. Let's see what he's got in store for us. And, he has a 4-hit combo instead of a 3-hit combo. Yeah, exciting. You do eventually memorize all the enemies' attack patterns, and it kinda does take a lot of the thrill out of it. Oh, but the enemies in the final chapter are exactly the same enemies, but now they have a lot more health, so at least it feels like the good old days of taking way too long to kill them. Cool. And unfortunately the set-piece battles are really nothing of note, honestly. They're just waves of enemies. This isn't Resident Evil 4 where you're going to have a lot of really memorable action set pieces or anything. Probably the last interesting thing about combat to note is that you pretty much can't heal during combat, nor can you really switch weapons. You technically can, but it takes prohibitively long, so it's pretty strongly discouraged. I like this idea. It's like a real fight. Every encounter is life or death. You slug it out until one of you dies. 60 seconds of adrenaline that determines whether you live or die. No stopping to heal or strategize. I think that's why the grip recharge is so slow, and why the guns take so long to reload too. You have your tools, and you're really only meant to use them once per encounter. But in practice, the implementation just limits your combat options, and it even cuts into the survival horror aspect. You're never really managing resources, you're basically using all of them in every encounter. Or using most of them because the damn grip takes too long to recharge, I guess. Speaking of survival horror, let's talk about the horror atmosphere and the survival elements. When it comes to inventory and death, not much of a concern. You have a paltry inventory before the armor, but either way it doesn't make you play any differently. It just makes you drop the grip batteries once in a while and move on. Checkpoints are plentiful, so no worries about restarting from a typewriter. However, there are some bits full of optional rooms and little side areas, and if you die, the stupid checkpoint makes you go redo all of the exploration again, even if you return to the room the checkpoint first triggered in. You can also spend 5 minutes selling, upgrading, and reordering your inventory, but if you die in the next room, the checkpoint will restart you uselessly staring at the machine before doing anything. There's just not much sign of survival horror here. There's no running past enemies to save ammo, there's no stockpiling items, and the game is just super linear. Follow the shiny green light of the accessible doors. It's practically an arena action game at some points. In fairness, there are several areas where you need to find out where to go in a slightly bigger environment, but it's all some variant of straight, and it's basically just a treasure hunt for a vent or a box to jump on. There's also lots of shimmying, ducking, vent crawling, you know, stuff that slows you down. There's even several types of terrain that prevent you from running, even when it really makes very little sense. So exploration can be a little bit lagging. The environments are also home to parasites and bloodworms, which are just annoying little enemies that attack you with QTEs and really serve no purpose but to slightly annoy you and slightly slow you down. Hey, come to think. QTEs, spectacle segments, too many mutating enemies, lots of melee. You even get some health back every time you die. Resident Evil 6? Is that you? Oh, right, I forgot about the robot stealth segments. I will forget again by the end of this sentence. The only time you have to actually watch your resources is due to the damn two heads. The entire game trains you to think of ammo as disposable, but not for these guys. So if you don't have ammo or the credits to get it, you're out of luck. Together with the final boss, there's 5 boss fights practically back to back that eat loads of ammo in the last 2 chapters. It's a huge rug pull. On the plus side, the game is gorgeous. The art direction is absolutely on point. Look at this lighting. Just look at it. It's so cinematic. It's absolutely gorgeous. Look at this too. Ugh, so good. And it's even got some nice little environmental scares too. It's just incredibly violent all in all and has some real creepy imagery and some nice areas. Keep quarantine, don't out. I couldn't have said it better myself. Hey, come to think, who do you think writes these bloody messages on the wall anyway? Did a guard just stop and think, you know, I'm pretty stressed at the moment and really feel the need to express myself artistically. I'll make some wall art from my friend's blood. What should I say? World dead? Farewell, world? Nah. Death is coming. Yeah, that sounds good. That's the message I want to send the world. Unfortunately, there's a serious problem with Callisto Protocol as a horror game. It has the isolation, it has the atmosphere in spades, sure, but the tension is broken by its very design. It's hard to be afraid of something jumping out, because my intention was to get close to it and whack it anyway. I'm not on the prowl for threats when I come to a new area. I can dodge anything automatically, and I can paralyze it in place instantly to boot, all without the use of any resources. Typically in survival horror, your actions are tied to finite resources, so that your choices fuel tension. But not here. Heck, take a similar game, like Resident Evil 4 Remake. It works a little bit differently than classic survival horror. Your ammo pickups are reduced the more ammo you're carrying. You might think then, that's not really survival horror either, as it doesn't matter if you conserve resources. You'll just run out eventually because the game will give you less. and if I do run out, I'll just get more eventually. But it's not about hoarding resources, it's simply about having them. You won't stockpile 100 shotgun shells by conserving them, but you'll have 8 of them when you really need them. A small stock of good resources is worth hanging on to, because your replacement stock might not be as useful and it might take longer to acquire than you bargained for, including after a really challenging section. It makes you use all of your resources intelligently, and that adds a ton of tension to the game. I played on the hardest difficulty once and found myself with no shotgun ammo during an especially tricky chapter. It was a nightmare, and every lone shotgun shell I found felt like a lifeline. I really needed to find a way to use my other weapons to compensate for it. You need to think about when to use your resources and how to put them together efficiently. In the Callisto protocol, well, you don't need any resources. You don't even need healing items. You can dodge infinitely, whack infinitely, your telekinesis recharges on its own. There's just no feeling of vulnerability to the game, so the efforts at horror always fall flat. And drawn-out, sparring slugfests really take away from the atmosphere too. Boxing with aliens is a lot of fun, sure, but Rocky and Alien aren't exactly in the same genre. The game lays on the horror imagery thick, and it sort of takes you out of it when you just start sparring with a monster. Don't get me wrong, when several enemies appear, it can get pretty intense. A fight can go south surprisingly fast. But there's no tension moment to moment, and there's zero sense of dread. And there's no fear of the unknown whatsoever. In a normal horror game, if an enemy manages to walk right up to you, you're doomed. Or at least in a fix. Here, you'll just dodge it and then thank it for saving you the trouble of walking across the room. What's more, they put you in the role of an everyman because they want you to feel that sense of vulnerability. But Jacob is a superhero. He beats down alien zombies by the dozen. He kills a room full of inmates moments after the story starts, and it barely even registers with him. Almost every horror game kind of sits with some cognitive dissonance of its hero being an unstoppable killing machine, but considering he can dodge anything like he's in a Jackie Chan movie, and he has zero backstory to justify any of it, it is especially glaring here. Now, Isaac in Dead Space isn't so different, but he has weapons better suited to fight necromorphs than the actual firearms are, and he's decked out in heavy armor. You can give him a little more suspension of disbelief. He probably leaned a lot on his weapons and armor in the beginning until he eventually just got a lot of experience fighting space terrors. Plus, since he's a silent hero and you only see him through a helmet most of the time, there's a distance there that you can sort of fill in the blanks yourself. Plus, Isaac's appearance and lack of dialogue heighten the sense of isolation and... Oh, wait, this isn't a Dead Space video, sorry. Let's connect Jacob and the atmosphere back to the story, which there isn't that much of. The early scenes are really great, too. You can quickly feel the pre-existing relationship between Jacob and his co-pilot Max. Ferris, the guard captain, is my favorite. When he first rescues Jacob, his slight awkwardness is darkly amusing. He walks in on a Jacob who's lost everything and is just kind of uncomfortably making small talk. Once Jacob is one of his prisoners, though, his demeanor completely changes. I love how he sits down next to Jacob on the couch like he and the prisoners are all buddies, at the exact same time he's telling Jacob, "I control your life." Unfortunately, he doesn't have nearly enough screen time despite being one of the major characters. Remember that trailer I mentioned at the beginning? The voiceover narration was entirely dialogue from Ferris. You still get a great confrontation scene with him early on, but from there he barely appears despite still playing an important role in the story. After the intro, there's really hardly any more story until the latter third of the game. You pick up data logs, but they never tell you much besides, "Oh no!" The world itself doesn't really get particularly fleshed out. There's just not really much in the way of diegetic stories going on in its environments either, and there's not much happening in the prison, period. We see Ferris organizing the guards' response early on, but everyone is always dead every time we get to a new area. We never even meet any inmates besides our sidekick and the couple we kill at the very start. When the warden's hologram reappears midway through, I had completely forgotten there was even a warden character in the game. There's a plot recap at the start of the DLC, and it skips over the middle 70% of the game entirely. Speaking of, I gotta tackle the ending. There's an extremely lame cliffhanger ending. The game starts to end, but then we get an optimistic tease followed by an impossible, confusing tease and cut to black. The DLC isn't "here's the true end" as much as "insert quarter to continue." Then, what's worse, it doesn't actually follow up on either one of those teases. and by the end of the DLC, the gameplay portion is rendered totally pointless. We hardly get any new story content, and it doesn't really resolve any loose ends either. They just threw a lazy cliffhanger in the final 6 seconds of the game to justify selling a DLC that accomplished nothing and left the ending worse than where we left it earlier. And, well, that's the end. It should be said, though, the fact I've made such a long video about this game means I do find it very interesting. Its combat is unique, it's visually really gorgeous, and the whole story behind its existence is pretty interesting. It's still definitely worth a play for me, even if it's riddled with flaws. And as a disclaimer, it was apparently much more of a mess on launch. Patches have apparently significantly tweaked the gameplay. I played it years after launch, so I can't really comment on that launch experience. The game was initially conceived as a single-player PUBG game, and you can still feel some traces of that in strange story developments that don't quite make sense. And the game was apparently forced to release 3 months early to boot, so it would seem it probably had a rough development cycle. Even worse, it was heavily advertised as a Dead Space successor, but had its thunder stolen by the actual remake of Dead Space launching a month later, and to much greater critical reception to boot. Sadly, both games ended up having their sequel hopes crushed due to good but not good enough sales. We may see more of Dead Space someday, but we probably won't see anything more from the Callisto protocol ever. It was troubled from its inception straight through to the end. But I will say, it is still, by far, the best Punch-Out game featuring aliens. The less said about that, the better. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, feel free to click that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.